Did you ever think we'd live in a world where the United States government would admit that UFOs are real? Or how about a world where you can ride in an electric car that drives you to work by itself? In simpler terms, so much has changed in the past 20 years that it's almost scary. With the rapid advancement in technology, it's made it easier for people to obtain information on almost any subject that they'd like to explore, including history. I've always been someone who questions everything. I like to pick things apart and really get a sense of what's really going on, no matter what the subject matter. I'm definitely not the smartest person in the world, but I do have an explorative personality. I believe that we, the people, have been lied to for many years in order to keep us dumbed down and easier to control. I believe we've been divided and distracted by the mainstream media and Hollywood to keep our attention elsewhere, while serious agendas and strategic plans go on behind the scenes. I also believe, with this rapid change in technological development, that some people are waking up and sharing ideas through the very programs that were developed to keep us asleep, YouTube being one of them. If you would have told me 20 years ago that giants walk the earth, I would have told you to pass the weed you're smoking. Today, being sober for many years, with a sound mind, I believe it more than ever. There have been many claims in the past of large skeletal human remains being dug up by many different people in many different situations in many different parts of the world. Some from archaeological digs or cave explorers, some from farmers or miners. But the one that really caught my attention and what caused me to create this documentary was one documented by the US military. Well, not officially, but we'll get into that later. The crazy thing is that this particular case doesn't have any concrete proof at all compared to the dozens of other findings of giants throughout the world. But this one caught my attention after hearing the confessions of not one, but two United States soldiers that claimed to have come upon a remote cave in Afghanistan where a 12-foot man charged a group of Marines while on a mission. Now, I know what you're thinking, but think about it. What would compel a Marine and an Air Force pilot to both go against orders and tell a very detailed story about a man-eating, putrid-smelling, 12-foot, 1,100-pound giant in the middle of the desert that killed one of our bravest veterans in the United States military? I mean, they knew that they weren't going to get rich off the story. They aren't 9-year-old boys. But they felt that out of respect for their fallen comrade, it was only right that the people heard of this giant discovery. No pun intended. The year was 2002, and the location was Kandahar, Afghanistan. A patrol had gone missing in a remote area, causing a group of Marines to be called in on a mission to find the missing group. After coming upon a mountainside, they discovered piles of human bones and military-issued radio equipment that the soldiers themselves were wearing on their persons. Right above them on a shelf in the mountainside was a large cave opening. The trained soldiers then assumed the worst and began to get into position in case of an ambush. Suddenly, a 12 to 15 foot tall, red-bearded man with a shield and spear-type weapon rushed the soldiers with incredible speed. One soldier was impaled by the spear, while the other soldiers continued to fire at the large man. Eventually, the giant was brought down after being shot countless times in the head and face. After confirming the large man was fully dead, the remaining soldiers put out a medevac request. Soon after, a large helicopter dropped down and the men were ordered to bundle up the 1,100-pound man and netting to be taken to Ohio, United States. The soldiers had a lot of trouble doing this due to how unbelievably heavy he was, and also because he smelled so badly like a decaying corpse that if you got close, you'd almost puke. After being flown away, communications described it as a possible human-like creature. The Air Force pilot that flew the creature out described the man as being about 1,500 pounds, 12 to 15 foot tall, with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, with decrepit, fungus-covered nails. The soldiers involved are upset not only because of their fallen comrade, but because they were told to change their official story to cover up what they had seen. Frustrated, they began to talk to other military personnel about what had happened, only to find out that other troops and local villagers in that area came in contact with large men as well. Teams in that area actually had training exercises on how to deal with the giants. The few soldiers that have gone on record about this amazing discovery hope that others will be brave enough to do the same. Soldiers have actually been eaten by these things, and their families have been lied to.
You were in Afghanistan in 2002, and you were called into a very remote section of Afghanistan because a patrol had basically gone missing.
Exactly.
Okay, and
Exactly.
there's no villages around
nothing
for miles.
Right.
So it's very remote.
Yeah, very remote. So we flew in. About 4 kilometers. We're hiking to the same area where they were supposed to make one of their checkpoints, one of their rally points. And before we left, there was all kinds of what happened with the ambush, but that was even odd because at the point of ambush, you would call for maybe close air support, something, okay? There was no calls made, just off the grid. So we're coming down a mountainside, and it was a nice path, a goat path. As we bent around this corner, you could see this opening of the cave. There's a cave as we're coming around. And then I see there's a lot of rocks, which is another oddity, and then bone matter. When I'm not close enough to identify what kind of bones, but I did see something I knew was a piece of our communications equipment. So instantly we're thinking ambush, maybe animal, could be anything. And there was enough room in front of this cave, but it had a sheer drop off. But there was enough room that we actually got into a decent dispersal in case of ambush.
You see something coming out of the cave, and it's moving with a speed and agility that catches you off guard. Everybody.
And he comes out. It was a man at least 12 to 15 feet in height. This is a monster. Red beard, then his hair was longish past the shoulder, a scarlet red, and Dan runs at him and starts shooting, which broke all of us into the reality. Because it was so real.
Now your training is kicking in.
Oh yeah,
okay.
Muscle memory, complete muscle memory. While Dan is moving at him, another bro of mine's laying down fire and I start firing. He skewers Dan. He's now got him on this pike. It went through him. And he's still got him. And he's coming after more. We all just clicked in. I don't know what it was, but I remember we're all like, shoot him in the face, shoot him in the face. And our weapons components were in force. We had 308s, and we had Barrett 50s. This is sounding longer than it took. We're talking 30 seconds. And he's taking multiple hits, and is still moving.
He talked about
Dan was dead, okay? And why is a good man, probably one of the best men I know, now dead. Before I'd left, they were already starting what they call a 9-line, which is a medevac request. They're sending out a medevac request, then all of a sudden it's not a medevac request. All of a sudden we had a helicopter show up because, like I told you, it was a large precipice and a sheer drop. So the helicopter just came up from the drop. They had dropped netting, which is like cargo netting. It's like squares. We were told we had to bundle him up. And we get another bigger helicopter, but it's almost like a Jolly Green Giant used to look back in the day that could get, through this area. Because the mountains, you gotta remember, Chinooks could only go in certain places because they had enough lift. Mm-hmm. And so we got him on there. The thing was too big, we couldn't move it. It smelled worse than a skunk, corpse that's been around for a while.
Really fell.
Oh, it was like a combination because of the, how do you put that, the persistence of a skunk smell. But once the helicopter came in, dropped its little hook, and off he goes. The communication was sent out that we had a very large possible human creature.
There you are in the hills of Afghanistan. How many troop members are you with?
We had 6 on my crew. When we say hills of Afghanistan, for us, we did not fly into the wilderness. We actually flew into a base. I guess this thing was transloaded out of the mountains by a CH-47. What I could see that it did have the 6 fingers. I remember taking my foot up and placing it up next to its foot, and it was extremely large. We estimated it at about 12 feet, give or take. What I can tell you is the weight of the thing. Basically, it was approximately 1,500 pounds when it was getting on the aircraft. Now, if you take away the pallet weight and all the rigging that we had to hold this thing down, we figured it was around 1,100 pounds.
Of course we're upset. That's a given, okay? We lost a very good guy. But add to that, you're discussing something that even in our after action report, they're saying rewrite it. And we had to rewrite it the way they wanted.
How many fingers?
6 toes.
Six fingers and 6 toes.
And the nails were weird because if you see somebody that ever has, I don't know what it's called, but it's
Like a fungus on
the nails, how they get pointy and they're like gnarly, that's what they look like.
As we
Check it out, man. I mean, this merch is like really sick.
Check me out, bro.